Yo, it's Arcade and today we are gonna make hard acid techno with some elements of psytrance as well. So get ready and we'll get started right away. First thing first, let's set the BPM to 135. It should be a bit faster, but you can go 128 if you want to, but I prefer the faster pace. Next, we are gonna make some drums, and luckily for you, it's the easiest thing there is because it's just the kick. So here is my kick. It should be a hard, punchy kick, not something weak. This one is from Staple Sounds, which are my sample packs. And just right click on it, fill each 4 steps, and you got your drums. And let's put that to the playlist. And I suppose I lied when I said it's just the kick. We are actually gonna add some hi-hat loops as well. Nothing fancy, just this one. And this one with an offbeat open hi-hat. And to make these work better in the song, we are actually gonna add some effects on them. So I added the reverb from NeonGlow, which is my own plugin, but you can use any plugin to add reverb. It sounds like this. Just a bit more open. And then I also added Transient Processor, one of my favorite plugins for mixing. You can either increase the attack, which will result in the start of the sound getting like boosted. So if we increase the attack, it sounds like this. As you can see, the attack, the start of the hi-hats is louder, but I actually wanted the release of the hi-hats to be louder. So if we do that, this is too much, but I went with 28%. So the release and even the reverb is sort of pushed up, so it's a bit louder in the whole mix. And if you don't know, the order of these plugins matters. Since we got the transient processor after the reverb, it will also affect the reverb. If we had it before the reverb, it would only affect the hi-hats, but not the reverb. So yeah, that's an important thing to note when adding effects. So that's our drums and our hi-hats. It sounds like this. Not much to it yet, but the hi-hats should be more in the background because they are not the main part of the song. Speaking of the main part of the song, the start of the show is the acid bass. So let's take a look at that. I'm using this one from Contact and the sound sounds like this. It's like the signature acid bass and it's a very recognizable sound, and this specific preset is just awesome. I'm using Contact Player library called Utopia. If you want to get this library and many others, then check out the bundle from Native Instruments in collaboration with FL Studio. You can get the complete collection or complete signature series for FL Studio, and it's discounted by 85%, which is a huge sale. So if you want to take advantage of that, check out the link below and get yourself an amazing bundle full of synth plugins, effect plugins, Contact libraries, and more. Link is below, and now let's get back to the video. So this is the sound we are using, and here's the main idea behind the song. So the melody I went with looks like this. It looks pretty simple actually, and it sounds like this. The reason I played it multiple times is because you can hear the sound changing throughout, which is just amazing because it saves us some work and lets us sort of repeat this melody while keeping it fresh the whole time. When working with these acid bass sounds, you want to make sure to switch in between the octaves because that's where you're gonna get the best sound. So I stay on the F note and sort of create the melody octave higher. And that's pretty much it. It's really simple, but it works. So if you don't know where to start with the melody and you don't know what notes you can use and which ones you cannot, you can actually right click on this note, choose what scale you want to work in, let's say minor, use the right click so it doesn't close, and then choose F. And our scale is set to F minor. And now you can see we have the highlighted notes and we have the darker ones. So the highlighted ones are the ones that you can use in F minor. So if you are just gonna go with these notes, you're gonna stay in the right key. And as you can see, my song is actually in F minor as well. So that's just a little helpful tip for the people who don't know any music theory. This is how you can get started working on the bass easily and make sure that you stay in the right key as well. Just right click here, choose your scale, and use the highlighted notes, and you are good to go. Anyway, so our bass is ready. We are gonna play with it a bit more later, but for now, let me just put it into the playlist, and let's actually put some effects on it as well. I'm gonna add kickstart, which is a sidechaining plugin, meaning that every time the kick hits, the volume of this sound is lowered. You can also use gross beat instead. Just go to gross beat, repeater, sidechain A, sidechain B, the same thing, but I always use kickstart. It's just my habit. I also added some EQ, deleting the low frequencies, because this is not going to be used as our sub bass. We're going to have another sound for that, so delete the low frequencies from this one. And also Sound Goodizer to boost some of these frequencies in the C preset, which are, I think, more of a mid frequencies. It's going to make this sound a bit fatter. So once we have that, we can play it and see what we got so far. So yeah, the song is shaping up, but it's a bit empty without the sub bass, so that's what we are going to add right now. I'm actually gonna use the sub bass and one more offbeat bass, but first the sub bass. This is the sound I'm using. Very deep bass, and you want to make sure there's not many high frequencies. You just want the sub bass mainly. And here's the melody. It's just the F key, and this is the rhythm. So as mentioned before, our song is in F minor. That's why I repeat the F key. The rhythm is rather simple. 2 notes here, and then 1 long note, and that repeats throughout. Of course, we are going to add Kickstart plugin to sidechain it, because you don't want the sub bass to overlap with the kick. That's why the volume of the sub bass will be lowered every time the kick hits by using the sidechaining. I also added some EQ, increasing the low frequencies a bit more. And as you can see, we don't have any high frequencies here. If you still have high frequencies, you can just right click on the band number 7, choose type, low pass, move this dot until it's 4 dots, and then you just remove the high frequencies. I also added transient processor, once again boosting the attack, because I wanted a little bit of the click of the bass in there. It's not much, as you can see, but it adds a little something, and maybe you cannot even hear it, but it makes me feel good knowing that I boosted that. Then the bass sounds like this. And it sounds like this along with the other sounds. We got that techno rumble in there, which is great. And now let's add the offbeat bass to spice this up a bit more. So for the offbeat bass, I'm using this sound. And of course, I'm using sounds from this library because I was excited to try out these new sounds, but you can use any other plugins as well. So the offbeat bass looks like this. It's in the name. It's just these offbeat notes, once again using the F key. But as you can hear, there are some low frequencies, so we're gonna delete those because we don't want them to overlap with the sub bass. So I added some EQ, removing the low frequencies. Before we clicked on band number 7 to remove the high frequencies, but now we actually click on band number 1, do type high pass instead, and then you remove the low frequencies. I also boosted some mid and high frequencies to make this bass stand out in the mix a bit more. Then I have transient processor boosting the attack and the release, so the initial hit is a bit harder and also the release of the sound is a bit louder as well. Now it's just like a clicky offbeat bass. So once we got that, it sounds like this in the whole song. Let me just duplicate this and here we go. So yeah, the acid techno track is shaping up. One more sound I added to spice things up is this stab, or whatever you want to call it. It's like an eerie sound, and techno is definitely sort of dark, so you want to use these eerie sounds in the background to make it more interesting for the listener. And it's just this noise saw playing some lower notes. And I also deleted the low frequencies from this one once again so it doesn't overlap with the sub bass. But I did not sidechain it because I wanted it to stand out a bit more in the whole track. It sounds like this. It just adds something in the background that can catch your attention. So our first drop is shaping up and it's almost finished. But one more thing we are going to add, which is sort of an unlikely sound, is this glitch effect. And bear with me here because it might sound a bit weird at first, but once we add the effects and cut it up, it's gonna be sort of an interesting addition to the whole song. So this is the glitch effect I'm talking about. Yeah, you might wonder, how are you gonna add that into the song? We are actually gonna turn it into sort of a background lead. So once again, all the samples that I'm using here are from my sample pack staple sounds. If you want to get those, you only pay once. You get access to all of my sample packs, and not only that, you'll be receiving brand new sample packs every month for free. So check it out, link is below as well. So as you can hear, this is a really weird glitchy sound, and I cut it up in the song like this, sort of creating a rhythm with it. And when we just play it without the effects, it might sound a bit weird. That's why we're gonna put some effects on it. Starting with transient processor, boosting the attack and the release to make the sound stand out a bit more. Then I added stereo shaper and adjusted the left and right, so you can hear the difference between the left side of the sound and the right sound of the sound a bit more. So without it, it's like this. And with it, it's like this. You can hear the right speaker sort of hit a bit more at the end there. Then we got gross beat. And I added the 1/4 gate preset right here. So it's like very choppy. And then I added NeonGlow. As I mentioned, that's my own plugin. And I just added the reverb from it, which completely transformed this into more like a percussion sound almost, but also still keeping that lead harmonics in there. Then some EQ to delete the low frequencies and add a boost around here, just a small one. But then I still wasn't satisfied with the sound, so I decided to add a plugin from the Native Instruments bundle, and it's this one called Neutron 4 Elements. So let's just add it in, and basically what it does, it listens to the sound and uses AI to sort of determine how to mix this sound. So let's just press start listening and play it. And here is what it decided to do with our sound. And then you can of course adjust it, and I decided to adjust the width, meaning that it will not be in the center of the mix, but more to the size of the mix. So you can visually see it here. This would be sort of center of the mix, and this is more to the size of the mix. And this is very good to do with many sounds, because some of your sounds are supposed to be in the center of the mix, like the kick, the bass, but then to make space for other sounds, you want to move them in the stereo field somewhere else so they have their own lane, and you will be able to hear them more in the whole mix. So I just adjusted it until I was satisfied, and it sounds like this. So here is how it sounds in the whole song. So it's not like the most obvious sound in the song, but it's there and you can definitely hear it if you focus on it. So that's just a little nice addition to make things more interesting. Okay, last but not least, let's add some effects, which includes some down sweeps, some crashes, some reverse crashes. You basically just double click your crash, hit reverse, and you get your reverse crash. Some more glitchy effects as a fill in the last repetition of the drop, last 4 beats. Also this vocal as a fill, which will be used more in the breakdown. This one is from Duets. Again, it's included in the bundle that you can get on a huge discount. And then we have some snare at the very end. I'm using this 909 snare and one of my snares. So once we got all that, the first part of the drop is ready and it sounds like this. So we are on the right track, but next I want to add some variations to the drop, which is very important if you want to keep the song going at a high pace. So let me show you how I did that. And then I'm also going to show you how to make the breakdown and the build-up. But now the second repetition of the drop, we have some variations here. The main one being I changed the acid bass. So before we had this rhythm, and now we have this rhythm. Again, staying on the F key, just switching in between the octaves and adding some rhythmic notes, some shorter and longer notes, and it sounds like this. So basically switching up the rhythm, and that's pretty much the only difference in the second part of the drop. So it sounds like this. catch it? Yes, I also automated some effects on this. So this sound has this aliens knob, which if you turn it up, it will completely transform the sound. So I automated that. If you want to automate any of these parameters in FL Studio, just click this button right here, move the parameter, right click this button, and create automation clips. Then you will have automation clip like this, and you can adjust it. I went up with it at the end of the repetition to keep the song interesting. So that's the second repetition of the drop. And then we have the third one, which is more melodic. And even though techno sometimes isn't really melodic, I wanted to add something melodic because I just love it. So instead of staying on the F note, we start on the F note, but we actually create the melody with the bass. It sounds like this. Same rhythm as before. And as you can see, I'm following the highlighted notes as I showed you before. If you set your key to F minor, FL Studio will show you the keys that you can use in F minor. So I stuck with it and created this melody. So once you change this bass, you also need to change your sub bass and the offbeat bass. So that's what I did. This is the sub bass following the same melody as you can see right here, and the offbeat bass also following the same melody. So then we have this. And I also removed the open hi-hats and the hi-hats and instead added these rides. Just very washed out rides. They sound great in the background and sort of support this rhythm. And because I love melodic stuff, I also added some melody. So here's the melody I went with. It's using this sound, sort of like a trance lead, and then this sound, which is like a distorted lead. And here's the melody I created, really simple. Once again, sticking to F minor key. So it sounds like this in the whole song. So just adding this part, sort of like a melodic techno. I actually had one more alternative melody, which I'm gonna show you anyways, because you might recognize it. So yeah, that one is also fun, but I decided to use this one instead. So that's pretty much it for the drop. We have our first part, which is this sound. In the second one, we have this sound. And in the third one, we have this melodic twist. But what about the lower paced part of the track, the breakdown and the build-up? Let me show you how I did that. So I have it here as an intro, and we have a few sounds. The first one being this one. Once again, sort of an eerie sound, almost reminds me of some sort of an alarm. And the preset is actually called Alarm Alert, so that fits. I added this stab once again, as I showed you before, and I added the vocal from the duets. So we have this sort of counter melody with the vocal and the alarm. The alarm says the sentence and the vocal responds. It sounds like this. I really like this idea of looking at it that way, like it's a sentence and a response, and this sort of creates the tension leading up to the build-up. So the breakdown basically sounds like this. And then we transition into the build-up, which is also fairly simple. We start introducing the offbeat bass, sort of start hinting at the rhythm. I also introduce the hi-hats, the glitchy background melody, some down sweeps, the alarm and the vocal and the stops. But to turn this more into a build-up, I also added some build-up drums. So we have a rhythm like this, sort of similar to the Glitchy melody. And yeah, that's our build-up drums. As you can see, this is the first rhythm. Then we have this rhythm. And then just all the way through. And also I went to Graph Editor, adjusted the velocity in the first part of this, and also adjusted the pitch so it's going up at the very end. Then our build-up is ready. We just have this fill right before the drop. And then we go to the drop, which I already showed you. So that's pretty much it for this acid techno track. Now let me show you the finished result. If you want to get any of the sounds and effects that I used today, check out the bundle from Native Instruments in collaboration with FL Studio. As I said, it's on an 85% discount, so take advantage of that. Link is below, and now let's hear the finished result. Thanks for watching. The full song will be on Spotify. All the links are below, check them out, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.